Welcome into another edition of Back to the Bullpen. This is a special one. We're going to be discussing the Astros with Chandler Rome.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, and I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heater low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walking back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
All right, here we are with Chandler Rome. Chandler, this has been an interesting season to say the least. This has been a roller coaster already. First, I want to start off with the whole idea of these storms that we just had. Did you get through those storms okay? How are you and yours?
Yeah, everything's good. I'm in the Heights, actually, where everyone around me really got slammed. I didn't have power for 3 days, but luckily, got it back right before the weekend ended. I grew up in Louisiana, and I went through my fair share of hurricanes. And walking around the Heights after that storm, it reminded me a lot of hurricanes I went through as a kid. Just devastation and destruction, just everywhere with the trees and the limbs down, and it was incredible. I was at the ballpark when the storm rolled through, and it was crazy to see the wind. It's crazy to see the rain inside the ballpark. Everyone thinks that Minute Maid Park, the elements can't get inside, but when the elements are that bad, the elements can find their way inside.
Yeah, and you have to remember, Minute Maid Park is not a domed stadium. It's not an enclosed stadium. There's holes all over everywhere, especially around those windows in left field. And, we saw the pictures of, Vanessa and Michael Bourne on set in center field. And Vanessa looked like she was in the shower, that it was raining so hard on top of her. So, it just shows the power of Mother Nature. And, the Heights, that's one of the oldest parts of Houston, all the big trees. They're all beautiful, but when you get winds like that, they're coming down. So hopes and prayers out to everyone out there that still are having issues, maybe don't have electricity. Hopefully you'll get it back soon. So let's go back. Let's go to the Astros now. This team has had a good homestand. They've kind of really done what they needed to do, playing much better baseball. Struggled a little bit there against the Angels, losing 2 out of 3, but give us your take on where this team is right now and where they may be going.
Yeah, I think they're playing better. The schedule has softened up. I don't think we gave a ton of credit at the beginning of the season to how difficult their schedule was. They played the Yankees 7 times, and I think the Yankees have really separated themselves as a really good club. They played the Royals up in Kansas City, who are off to a torrid start. They played the Cubs. They played some good teams to start the season. Now, the Astros fancy themselves a championship contender, and championship contenders should be able to match up against good teams. But still, they played a difficult schedule to start the season. It has lightened up, and they've done, for the most part, what they had to do. They swept the A's. They beat a really decent Brewers team. I don't think the Brewers are going to win the NL Central, but they certainly came in the Minute Maid Park, and the Astros handled them. 2 out of 3, probably could have even had a chance to win that third game as well. And then, that Angels series just kind of it's baseball, and I'm sure we'll talk about why one of those games went askew. But they lost 2 of 3, but in one of those games, you had a 5-run lead in the 5th inning with your number 2 starter on the mound. And then in the other game, it was a 1-run ball game where you just got to kind of tip your hat to Tyler Anderson, who pitched really, really well for the Angels. So they're going to go on the road. They're going to see the A's again this weekend for 3 more, maybe try to gather some momentum a little bit. And then, it's hard to call a series in late May massive, but you're going to go for 4 in Seattle. You don't want to get swept in that series, because if you get swept, you're suddenly looking at you're 7-8 back in the division. You're maybe back to 9 or 10 games under 500 going into June, and you kind of wonder where this season goes from there.
Yeah, you're right. It's tough to say a must-win, and that's not the right term. It's not must-win, but like you said, they've got to play good enough to try and split, and that was a tough place for them to play last year. Yeah, they handled their business there that last series going into the playoffs, but it's also a place that the Astros have played well in the past. Seattle Mariners are hot. You know, we've seen them in the last couple of years. They've gotten off to really bad starts, but by the end of the season, they're relevant. Astros are looking to do that this year, but this is a team that can pitch and stop an offense that's really swung the bat well, especially in this last homestand.
Yeah, and I mean that's the key for the Astros going into this series is the Mariners can't hit. Julio Rodriguez is having an awful start to his season. They don't have much around him that really scares you. This is a lineup that can be pitched to, and this is going to be they're going to be a lot of low-scoring, close games. I don't imagine that the Astros are going to get into any high-scoring games in Seattle, just given the strength of Seattle's pitching staff. So close games have not been the Astros' friend this year. I mean, I think they lost their first 8 of their first 9 one-run games. They've won a couple in extra innings lately, but had not been good in extra innings. So they're going to have to find a way to win some of these one-run games, to win some of these close games, and do the little things well toward the end. And I think that's the thing about this homestand that was encouraging. It just seemed like they were doing all the little things a little bit better. The defense was really good. That they were pitching out of the bullpen well. You saw some great plays in the outfield. You just saw they were just doing the fundamental stuff, the base running. Mauricio Dubon getting thrown out at third on Wednesday, notwithstanding. I mean, Joe Espada talked about in the spring they wanted to be an aggressive base running team. Well, they showed it on this homestand. They manufactured some runs. They're doing the little things a lot better, and I think that's allowing them to have a little bit more success.
Yeah, and you can see the confidence grow. I mean, when you're seeing better quality at bats with runners in scoring position, that's been a problem. Giving up leads, yeah, that's been a problem this season also. But this homestand, they looked like the Astros that we've all come to know and love. Framber's last outing, he was dealing through 4, got into the 5th, and got into some trouble. Then in his post-game sound, he actually said that, Yainer did a great job of putting down the right numbers, but he changed the game plan. I have my opinions on this, but I want to get your take. What did he mean by he changed the game plan?
I think this is a fascinating discussion to have, just given everything, all the layers of this. First of all, Joe Espada was the one that initially said this. We kind of how the sausage is made. We talked to Joe Espada after games before we go into the clubhouse.
Right.
And Joe Espada was the one that kind of let the cat out of the bag that Framber Valdez had veered from the game plan, and that's kind of why that 5th inning went the way it did. Framber Valdez acknowledged that when we talked to him, basically said, I wanted to throw a certain pitch. It was the changeup to Nolan Schanuel, the only left-handed hitter in the Angels lineup. Threw him a first pitch changeup, and he hit it out of the ballpark for a 3-run homer. Framber had thrown 5 changeups all season to a left-handed hitter, and the 6th kind of left the ballpark. And when you look at Framber's arsenal, he's got 2 elite pitches in a sinker and a curveball. His changeup is good, certainly not elite, certainly not the level of those pitches. And then we talked to Yainer Diaz as well, and Yainer Diaz basically said, I could have forced him to throw another pitch, like maybe I should have, but it's what he felt convicted in, and it's what he felt, the most confident in. Mm-hmm. And I think that this discussion has a lot of layers. First of all, Mike, you shook off pitchers all the time, I imagine. Like that's not. This is not some dereliction of duty. This is not some aggressive bad thing that happened. This happens all the time. Yep. Pitchers shake off catchers all the time. Usually they don't lead to 8-run innings. I think that's why this one was magnified.
Right.
And I think it's magnified too because this team started 7-19. Like you have forfeited the luxury of having, that's just baseball. Benefit of the doubt. It's a learning experience for everyone. Like no, when you start 7-19. Everything else, every subsequent game has a measure of urgency.
Sure. Everything's magnified. Yes.
Right. And so something like this gets magnified more than maybe it should because you had a 5-run lead against an awful Angels team. They are not Ron Washington's got them playing over their skis. They're inspired. They've got a ton of guys on the IL, but you look at that lineup, that is not a good Angels team. You had a 5-run lead in the 5th inning with your number 2 starter on the mound, and you lost that game. That's one of those games that if you get to September and there's 5 games left and you're 2.5 out of the wild card, you look back and you're like, man, we lost that game.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, But that's one layer of this whole thing. That this was a normal baseball thing that got magnified because the Astros got off to a horrible start.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is maybe to talk about Fromber. This is not the first time this happened. This has happened with Fromber. He's done it before. Yainer Diaz even said we did it in his last start against the A's when he threw 7 shutout innings and struck out 8 guys. He did it with Martin Maldonado last year. And I know there was a lot of outcry about, oh, this would never happen with Maldonado. Maldonado was the personal catcher, was the guy that would get on Fromber. And that's right. Like Martin Maldonado just being an older catcher, being a guy with a ton of status, and just kind of really being the leader of that team and being kind of I don't want to say a father figure, but just more of like they respected him and they looked up to him. Yainer Diaz just doesn't have that cachet yet. So I think a lot of people, some people went to Yainer and were like, oh, no, Yainer can't make him throw the pitch.
Yeah.
He's not, Fromber's the one holding the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not something where Framber Valdez took advantage of a young catcher. Framber Valdez has done this a ton before. It just so happened that this time it turned into an 8-run inning for a team that needs every win it can get because of how bad it started.
Yeah, I mean, your margin for error has gone away. I mean, the games that you're supposed to win, you need to win. And what made this one so bad was he had a multi-run lead when he got that. There was something else that I saw. We saw his velocity jump big time in that inning. Jeff Blum on the broadcast, Space City Home Network, excuse me. He hit 99 miles an hour that inning. He hit 98 multiple times. He was 97. The problem is him being a sinker baller, and this is something that I took away from the game plan quote that he made, was that all of a sudden he started throwing the ball through his two-seam fastball. If you look at the location of those pitches, especially the solo home run, that was supposed to be a two-seam fastball down and away where he gets a ground ball and he throws it kind of middle up and away. And the hitter kind of just sticks the bat out there and puts the ball in the seats in right field. Whereas what we've seen him be doing in his last few starts is actually changing speeds on his fastball, not throwing it, 96, 97, 98 miles an hour. Throw it at 93 with sink and get those ground balls. So that may not be a game plan change. That might have been him just, getting angry with what was going on. But, we don't see Fromber with a whole lot of emotion on the field, but he's an emotional dude. And we've seen him get mad. And I think that's part of what happened was that he got angry and started overthrowing, and he just simply lost the sink on his fastball, lost his command. And even with a guy with plus stuff, that doesn't really matter. You put the ball out over the plate, these dudes can hit it, even a poor hitting team or a poor team like the Angels. Let's go to Kyle Tucker. What do you think about Kyle? Kyle's having an incredible season so far, among the league leaders in many stats. What are you seeing from Kyle?
He's been, in my opinion, the most underrated player in baseball probably the last 2 years, and I think he's now going to get properly rated. I think there's going to be a lot more talk on MLB Network, on the national shows about Kyle Tucker, because he's that good. And part of it's not his own fault. Part of it is he's on a team with Jose Altuve and Jordan Alvarez and Justin Verlander and household names that kind of dominate the discussion. He's really good. And he's been really good. This is obviously he's having a start to his season like we've never seen, but he's always been capable of this. I mean, James Click, the former GM, used to call him a true 5-tool player, and he is that. It's power, it's hit, it's speed, it's base running. He's a Gold Glover in right field. I mean, he does it all. And I mean, I have a little shtick on Twitter where I update people on his 30-30, his quest for 30-30. It may not be 30-30 this year. It may be 40-30 home runs and stolen bases. He fell 1 home run short last year with 30-30 season. Is he going to sustain this power, this home run pace? Probably not. I don't think Jeff Bagwell's franchise record single season home run record is in jeopardy just yet. But I think the thing about Tucker that's been a little bit, I don't want to say interesting, just different. He drew his 41st walk in the final game against the Angels, and I believe it was in his 215th plate appearance. He had
Wow.
647 plate appearances last year and drew 80 walks. So I'm not saying he came into the season wanting to walk more, but I think he's being more selective. I don't think he's swinging as much. I think he's swinging at pitches he knows he can do damage to. I think he's letting pitches that he knows he can't put in the gap or do anything with. He's letting those go by. And I think the thing with Kyle Tucker for the longest time, and Dusty Baker always used to call him his hard luck guy, and he was right.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of Kyle Tucker's underlying metrics in the last couple of years. He was great. He probably could have been better, just given the quality of his contact and his chase rate, everything like that. I think the elimination of the shift has helped him too. He's able to get some more hits he wasn't getting with the shift, and in a long-term kind of thought, he is pricing himself out. I mean, his value is only skyrocketing now. And, we've had this discussion before about pending Astros free agents. I mean, his market value right now far exceeds anything that this ownership group has ever done in an extension. And he's got another year. He'll be an Astro next year, barring a complete collapse and a trade deadline sell-off. But he'll be an Astro next year, but he keeps playing like this. That may be his last year, unless some procedures change, because he is cementing himself as maybe one of the best free agents available in a year and a half, and a guy that's going to be, I believe, 27 when he enters free agency, 27 or 28. Can do it all, durable, never injured. He's really showcasing, like I said, for me, he's long been one of the most underrated players in baseball. I don't think that's anymore. I think he's going to get his flowers, as he should, for the start to the season.
Yeah, he's been amazing, and you're really seeing the maturation process show up. And what I mean by that is just simply him making the pitchers throw strikes. If you make the pitchers throw strikes, your likelihood of hitting the ball hard and getting a positive result goes up tenfold. And that's one of the things that, on occasion, listen, you want him swinging the bat, even if sometimes he's not swinging at great pitches, just simply because he has the ability to put the bat on the ball with just about any pitch. So hopefully he can keep this going, because the Astros need him in the middle of that lineup. Let's go to someone that is a free agent at the end of the year. Alex Bregman swung the bat a little bit better as of late, even though he struggled a little bit against the Angels, got off to a bad start. What's going on with Alex?
I just think with him, it's all mechanics. It's all swing mechanics. He thought he found something earlier in this homestand. He had a great series against the A's, talked about, kind of went back to the basics with the knob of his bat going past the ball. And I think he hit 2 homers in one game, came back the next day, hit another homer. And then against the Angels, he goes 0 for 15. It's been a tough go for him. He's a guy that, I never really doubt him, just because he's done this before. He's had the slow starts and he's really turned it on, but never has one of his starts been this slow, and never has it been this prolonged. And he's the last guy I would ever think would let free agency or a contract year weigh on him. That does not seem like that's in his DNA, but until he starts producing, that's going to be a narrative. And, he gave me a quote I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that I don't know if I can curse on this thing, but he cursed in the quote and said, I could give a blank about playing in a contract year. He is insistent that that's not an issue. The thing about him, though, the defense has not suffered. He's been an elite defensive third baseman. He's not going to give you much on the base paths, just given he doesn't have a ton of speed, but he's going to get on base. Just he walks so much. He's so disciplined at the plate, but they need him to come around. They're not going to go anywhere they want to go with Alex Bregman having a 600 OPS or whatever he has.
Sure.
I know no one wants to hear this, because they lost 2 out of 3 and he went 0 for 15. But I thought the at-bats in the last game of the Angels series were better. I mean, he hit 2 balls hard to his pull side on a line, one right to the left fielder, one in the left center gap that the left fielder ran down. So again, no one wants to hear that. Alex probably doesn't even want to hear that with a 600 OPS, but it's
right.
not like the at-bats don't look terrible. Like earlier in the year when he was popping everything up, when he was rolling everything over, they didn't look great. I didn't think the at-bats in the Angels series looked like that. I just think there was some bad luck mixed in there. He came up in some big spots and didn't come through. So I think, that was a tough one. But again, like we were talking about with Fromber, everything is magnified now, because you started 7 and 19, and when you come up in those big spots and don't come through, the outrage is just going to get louder.
Well, and when you start chasing base hits as a hitter in really any league, but especially Major League Baseball, that's a miserable place to be, just simply because you can't make yourself get a base hit. Your job, you hear athletes all the time talk about the process, and the quality of at bat is part of the process. You have enough quality at bats, you hit the ball hard, you get your exit velocity, however you want to look at it, the hits are going to come. But when you start off like Alex has, and him being a free agent year, he can say it, but he's still thinking about it. I've been there. Every player that's gotten into that last year of a contract, it comes into your mind. You just simply can't keep it out. Now, one thing I want to say, if you want to get your Back to the Bullpen t-shirts, very nice, very affordable, go over to ramshirts.com, talk to Mark, tell him Mike and Brett sent you. They're very affordable, they're very comfortable, and wear them around everywhere you can, including the ballpark. Okay, let's talk about this run that they've been on. They had a good homestand. The question I think a lot of people are having, Chandler, is this just a run, or is this more of who this baseball team is?
I think we'll know a little bit more after they leave Seattle, to be honest with you. I think that's a big series. That's going to be a big place where we can, and again, you don't want to overemphasize 4 games, but they go in there and get swept, you're kind of like, man, like that's going to be a tough one to come back from, just given the calendars getting shorter. So I think when we were watching this team start 7-19, I don't think anyone with like actual baseball knowledge watched this team and said, "Oh, this is a bad team." Like they weren't, and a lot of it was some poor luck. Some of it was just established guys not performing. Some of it was the schedule they were playing, and they weren't playing poorly. Like they weren't kicking the ball around. They weren't, they had bats for the most part were okay. They were having a ton of at bats as runners in scoring position, just weren't getting the big hit. And I still feel that way. I still feel like, this team is too talented to be the 7-19 version of itself. I think the version you saw in this homestand is probably closer to the version of the Astros that you're going to get. This is one of the deeper lineups that they've had in a while, especially if Jake Myers is going to keep hitting like he's hitting.
Right.
I mean, this is one of and Jeremy Pena's rebound has been a godsend for them. Certainly, this is one of the deeper lineups, just 1 through 9, that they've had in a while. The pitching, they've got the arms, they've got but there's not a ton of depth behind them. So you worry about injuries or ineffectiveness of the 6 guys you have. The 6 starters you have are great. And can get you through a season, but there isn't much left in the minor leagues. They've exhausted all their depth. They don't have a ton of it. And the thing I worry about with this team, and this was something that people in baseball talked about when they were starting 7-19, was that, look, the record is not they kind of echoed what I thought. This team is too good. Like they are, yes, it's bad. The record looks bad, but don't worry about the record.
Yeah.
What some people were expressing to me, and this is people just not in the organization, just outside, just onlookers, people in the industry with other teams, were like, the interesting thing is going to be their margin for error is gone. So they're going to have to run their everyday position players. They're going to have to play every day. Like they can't be giving guys off. Like they can't tailor in schedule off days, things like Joe's trying to do that, but like these games are now too important. Sure. They're going to have to run the 3 leverage relievers in the back end of the bullpen. Like those guys are going to get thrown a lot. I mean, Josh Hader's already made 4 multi-inning appearances in his first 20 appearances after not doing it for 3 years.
Right.
I think that's another question I have, is how is his body going to respond to that? Like, because he hasn't done it for 3 years. Now he's done it 4 times in his first 20 appearances. Brian Abreu was used a ton last year. They're going to have to use him a ton this year. I mean, so they're going to have to start chasing wins. And when you're chasing wins, you've got to get your best guys out there. And I do wonder what effect that's going to have in September if they're still in this race and they've got to go pedal to the metal after going pedal to the metal for the past 3 months because their start made it be that way. So fascinating to see how Joe Espada is going to manage the playing time, how this team, if they can run off a streak of 10, 11 in a row to maybe stabilize things and increase their margin for error. But right now they don't have one, and they're going to have their elite guys go out there every day to try to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the situation you're in. This is still a quality ball club, but they have gotten into a place, they have dug a hole that it's going to take time to dig out of. And yeah, you would love to do it in a matter of just a few weeks. That's not really how things work in Major League Baseball. Yeah, you have a winning streak, but streaks come to an end. You're looking for consistent baseball. And they've been playing that. Maybe hopefully that series against the Angels where they lost 2 out of 3, that's just a hiccup on the long climb back up the hill. So we'll have to just wait and see. Hey, if you're going out to the ballpark and you need to get tightened up and you're in the Friendswood area, go over to state-of-the-art barbershop. Tell them the Back to the Bullpen sent you, that Mike and Brett sent you. They do a great job over there. So if you're ever in the Friendswood area and need a haircut, there you go. Chandler, hey, I really appreciate you coming on, spending some time with us. And, hey, we'll have to wait and see exactly where this ball team ends up.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Chandler Rome with the Athletic. That's another episode of Back to the Bullpen. And, this is one of those things. This Astros team, it's a good team, but, man, they got some work to do. Chandler, thanks a lot, bud.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike 2, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike 3, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home.